Okay, it looks like we are now live. Fantastic. What's up, everybody? What's up, Grisu, up in the chat? Hope I pronounced that right. Today, we are going to be looking into the origins of space. What I found... What's up, Nathan Oakley? What I found about this whole globe skepticism journey that I'm on. What's up, Julie? And it really is about globe skepticism. What I found is that so much of what they tell us is true about the globe, and what they say is fact. Hey, what's up, guys? So much of what they tell us, I've come to realize, is actually presupposition. They literally pulled it out of their ass before they had real proof for it, and then just by coincidence, everything that they said was true about the globe and the heliocentric model turned out to be true when they allegedly were able to go up into space and prove it all objectively and empirically. So we talk a lot about, is the earth flat, is the earth round? What's up, everybody who's joining in? Nice to see all you guys here. We talk a lot about, is the earth round? Is there proof of curvature? Can you see curvature? But, you know, what about the very medium that the planets are allegedly flying through? Space. What about that? You know, I was actually listening, speaking to Nathan Oakley, who's up in the chat. Someone says, D Marble sees you. I see you. Flat is where it's at. Your next shirt, Chris. Wow, that's genius. I was listening to Nathan Oakley's show this morning, and you know, he was basically talking about how, why even debate whether or not rockets can work in space when the medium that the rockets claim to be existing in has its own myriad of issues. And I was like, why even debate the shape of the earth being round? What about space itself? Where the hell did this concept come from? Who's the first person to think of the vacuum of space? What was their evidence? And I've already done a little bit of initial research. And it turns out that once again, how far back? It goes really far back. Once again, even the very concept of space goes back really, really far. Like, we're talking Stone Age times here, okay? Before anybody had even the vaguest capacity to actually get into space and prove what the hell it actually is or isn't. And again, I just find this to be a recurring theme and pattern with the heliocentric spinning space ball model. The recurring pattern, the recurring theme is that all these people asserted the tenets of the heliocentric model. We live on a ball, we live in space, space is a vacuum. They've been asserting these things for thousands of years before they had any real proof of it. And I would argue they still don't have proof of it. So let's go ahead and dive in to our high IQ live research. What's up, Sleeping Warrior? Let's go ahead and dive in to our high IQ research this afternoon, morning, or night, wherever your local sun has induced your sense of time of day. Well, I'd like to begin with a little something called horror vacui. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Horror vacui. In physics, horror vacui, or plenism, commonly stated as, quote, nature abhors a vacuum, is a postulate attributed to Aristotle. Interesting. Now think of that, ladies and gentlemen. Aristotle is often attributed as being the first person to prove the globe, like to really bring forward some concrete proofs. And he allegedly had his 4 proofs, which he lays out in his treatise called On the Heavens. Of course, if you, hey, what's up, Globebusters? Preach that science, brother. Let's not get into that discussion, okay? Let's not get that one started. Aristotle allegedly had 4 proofs. This is what mainstream pop science will tell you, that Aristotle had 4 proofs that we live on a spinning space ball. Of course, apparently one of those proofs is misattributed to Aristotle. But his 3 proofs, just to sum them up, the shadow cast by the globe Earth on the moon was one of his proofs. Hang on, let me just fix this camera. Oh yeah, it's a curved shadow. It's got to be a globe. It's the only explanation, right? You know, all that wonderful, you know, just presuppositional trash. Just push this over here. Okay, that's better. McBrazzle says, awesome mustache, almost as good as mine. I doubt it. I really doubt you have a better mustache, but that's totally him. Ancient Skeptic says, this guy used to be smart. What happened to you? You know, I just think, like, you know, you're probably like stupid or something. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. So here it is. So that was one of Aristotle's alleged proofs that we live on a globe, was you know, that the shadow cast by the moon. Another one was, oh geez, what was the other one? I was about to say ships disappearing bottom up, but that one apparently is misattributed to him. Aristotle did not write that in his book, his treatise On the Heavens. There's a few other just silly things. Oh yes, the constellations. As you travel further south or north, the constellations will appear to rise and fall beyond the horizon. What's up, Flat Earth Aussie Jesus? You absolutely destroyed Red's rhetoric in that debate. Even though it's like 5 versus 1, non sequitur show, you know, rigged babysat safe space for Globers. Flat Earth Aussie Jesus did great debating. I love the very ending of the debate where, you know, Red's rhetoric tried to basically say that, yeah, you know, you can't explain sunsets on a flat Earth using perspective. And then you just drop that truth bomb on him at the end. Cheers, bro. The one 2 nights ago wasn't as rigged. Well, that's good. Hopefully, maybe they're trying to be more fair. Because apparently, Non Sequitur Show is marketed, or at least all the Globers who invite me to debate them on the Non Sequitur Show, they always say that the Non Sequitur Show is a neutral public forum. Neutral public forum. Hey, you know what a neutral public forum is? A 1 versus 1 Skype call or Google Hangout. Yeah, no babysitters. No referees to come and save you when you're getting pummeled. So, but yeah, that was great. You murked them. Okay, so the constellation. So Aristotle allegedly had all these proofs that we live on a spinning space ball. Just ridiculous, really. I mean, you know, if anything, proof is getting in a fucking rocket ship and flying up into the vacuum of space and then turning around and looking. But they didn't have that 2,000 years ago. So if you're going to at least claim you have conclusive proof, at least have rocket ship technology. So Aristotle, going back 2,000 years, didn't have any of that. And of course, the truth is, if you really, really, really want to claim to have proof you live on a spinning space ball, actually prove it. You know, actually fucking prove it. Just don't look up at the sky and say, oh look, you know, these little lights are doing this. We must live on a ball. Like it's ridiculous. I mean, you know. You got a bunch of flat earthers nowadays trying to do actual experiments to find curvature on the ground, real world observations and tests. Right? Right? Globers should have been doing this 2,000 years ago when they were looking up at the fucking sky to prove what the ground beneath your feet is. So, isn't it very ironic that the man who, according to the mainstream scientific narrative, first proved we live on a sphere, he's the same guy who said nature abhors a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. Now, imagine the irony. And I'm not going to say that Aristotle did not believe in the vacuum of space, because that's what I'm here for. I'm going to be researching it live, and we're going to determine that. But from my initial looking into this, it seems that in Aristotle's book called Physics, he may very well have argued that the vacuum of space is ridiculous. So talk about irony. Talk about irony. Nature abhors a vacuum is a quote attributed to Aristotle, the man who allegedly first proved we lived on a spinning space ball. So that's irony for you. Well, look, whoa, shit, I didn't even notice this. They literally have the quote from Aristotle's book about nature abhorring a vacuum right here in the Wikipedia page. Fantastic. Well, that makes my life a little bit easier. I had pulled up his book right here. Right here. Right here. And we're going to be looking into this now, but let's do that. So, before we jump into Aristotle, I typed into Google, who discovered space? And one of the things that came back was a Reddit post from 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Yeah. Flat Man in the chat asked, how did Eratosthenes keep track of time when measuring the sun when the hourglass wasn't invented till about 200 years after him? Well, there's a lot of questions with Eratosthenes' experiment. My big gripe is refraction. There's a pro-globe website out there that likes to debunk flat Earth, and they tried to prove how Eratosthenes' experiment is great, and they went out and they set out to try to re-perform Eratosthenes' experiment, in modern times. And they literally say in one of the sentences, they're like, yes, this is the Eratosthenes experiment is extremely precise. You have to get extremely precise measurements. If not, the experiment will fail. The Eratosthenes observation will fail without really, really, truly precise observations. Really, really, truly precise. So all I'm saying is refraction, bro. Refraction, bro. Because you see, Eratosthenes, this is how his observation worked. In one city, the sun is at zenith. The sun is directly overhead. Having a zenith, a sun that is truly directly overhead, that is not a common thing. It only happens in certain parts of the sphere Earth, the alleged sphere Earth. Actually, truly at 12 noon, it's actually directly above your head. That's a rare thing. I forget which city it was for Eratosthenes, but the sun actually was directly overhead in one of those cities, allegedly, and he supposedly confirmed this by looking down a well. The problem is that his entire observation was based on one city having a zenith sun directly overhead, and then another city that doesn't have a zenith sun directly overhead. Right? See that? So the problem is you're comparing light rays. Because they say, oh, with refraction, if the light is going through the medium, in like a straight direction, the light would have to pass through different density gradients to start to bend. But people will be like, oh yeah, but if the sun is directly overhead, it's just coming straight down. It's not coming in at an angle. It's not coming in at an angle through the density gradient of the atmosphere. The problem is that the other city is not at zenith. So there goes that. Refraction absolutely had to be a factor, and I don't think he took it into account. So it's a joke. Nathan Oakley says, this is all based on an assumption of R. Yeah, well, right. And I don't know the didn't Eratosthenes take his? He had numerous presuppositions. He presupposed the Earth was a sphere. That's one of the presuppositions he made. He presupposes a sphere, and he had to presuppose something else. I don't remember. But so it's ridiculous. So how did we discover the space was a vacuum? So this is on Reddit 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Who first proposed that space was a vacuum? What did they base their hypothesis on? How did we ultimately prove space was a vacuum? So here we have the top answer. Quote, Greek understanding of physics also progressed under Strato of Lampsacus, 269 BC. We are talking over 2,000 years ago. He rejected the idea of a force pushing light objects, such as air, upwards to counter the force that pulls heavy objects down. He argues for the existence of a vacuum and showed that because air can be compressed, voids must exist between the particles of which it is made up of. And the source. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. See, here's the thing. So this isn't, see, there's a difference between somebody making a vacuum here on Earth in their fucking shed versus the vacuum of space. I'm not looking for who first discovered a vacuum exists here on Earth. I'm talking about the vacuum of space. Just to expand on this, Strato was very much in the minority on this, as it was in direct conflict with Aristotle, who claimed nature abhors a vacuum. Aristotle was considered authoritative on all scientific matters until roughly the 17th century. Again, this is another prime example of how appealing to consensus and consensus worship is a mental illness for the mentally stunted. Literally, mainstream modern heliocentrists resist, some even straight up say we need to censor anybody who questions a heliocentric consensus. They literally said it. It's like censor flat earth videos. They're down. But Strato, who argued for the vacuum, was in direct conflict with the consensus at the time, Mr. Aristotle. So it just goes to show that just because something is consensus does not make it true. And that's what we have nowadays. We have a bunch of consensus worshippers. Aristotle was considered authoritative on all scientific matters until roughly the 17th century. In fact, when Pascal first demonstrated his device for creating a vacuum to the local clergy, the church considered censuring him. They reconsidered when they realized that light still occupied the space of his vacuum, and thus pronouncing his observation to be valid even in the Aristotelian context. Anyway, so we're not talking about a vacuum on Earth. We're talking about the vacuum of space. Who first came up with the very idea? Now, here's an interesting one that I keep seeing during the Renaissance. Evangelista Torricelli, the invention of the barometer in the 1600s, people started to realize that pressure goes down as you climb up a mountain. Now just extrapolate from there. Oh, right, because somebody here asks, 5 years ago, did we know Earth's atmosphere didn't go on indefinitely before we launched our first probes into space? This is my question. Where the hell did they pull this crap out of? Where did they ever come to the conclusion that the vacuum of space exists out there? Was it before or after they started allegedly sending rockets and probes? So somebody responds and said, we surely did, though we didn't know all of the details. A number of our first launches included efforts to obtain data about the upper atmosphere. During the Renaissance, Evangelista Torricelli invention of the barometer, 1600s, people started to realize that pressure goes down as you climb up a mountain. Now just extrapolate from there. So I guess people are basically saying, well, as you climb up, pressure drops. So eventually there's going to be a vacuum. I hope to God that's not the logic of the people who concocted and invented the notion of the vacuum of outer space. Just because pressure goes down as you climb up doesn't mean you're going to eventually step into a vacuum. Like, that's silly. But we continue to dig here. 5 years ago, somebody responds. About 1,000 years ago, Abu Ali al-Hasan ibn al-Hasan ibn al-Haytham. Wow. What a fucking name. Better known as Alhazen, measured atmospheric pressure at various altitudes and figured out that it decreases with it. Then he concluded that at one point there would be no more pressure, no more air. He deduced the height of homogeneous atmosphere to be 55 miles, which turned out to be a remarkably good estimate. So again, someone is arguing that humanity has known about the notion of a vacuum of space going back 1,000 years ago to Alhazen, who allegedly began to measure things, and apparently he deduced the height of homogeneous atmosphere to be 55 miles, which turned to be a remarkably good estimate. Really? 55 miles? I mean, what? I mean, apparently Earth's atmosphere now extends to 400,000 miles. So what exactly type of atmosphere are you talking about here? The first rockets that made it to space were German rockets in the 40s. By that time, we had a very firm grasp of our situation as being on a planet with an enveloping atmosphere. There are way too many lines of evidence to list. Weather balloons existed, we had telescopes, we knew plenty about the other planets and their atmosphere. The fact that you see other planets is enough. They would be invisible and their motions impossible if the atmosphere went on forever. Well, no, you're probably presupposing that the planets and stars are gazillions of thousands of miles away. So if they're not that far away, even with a thick atmosphere, you may very well be able to see them within our observations. You can infer the nature of the atmosphere simply by observing the color and transparency of the sky and understanding the scattering of light. We see clouds and understand the different types, and they don't go on forever. On and on, there are thousands of overlapping observations that existed in the 40s. But again, my point isn't, what did we know in the 40s? People have been postulating that outer space exists. Well, I'm still trying to get the exact number. When Aristotle is attributed with saying nature abhors a vacuum, was he talking about the vacuum of outer space, or was he just talking about some little local vacuum that someone makes here on Earth? I want to find out who originally thought that we live on a spinning space ball in space. That's what I want to know. Let's go ahead and read a little bit here from Aristotle's book, Physics. According to Wikipedia, quoting Aristotle, this is what Aristotle wrote, the man who's attributed with saying nature abhors a vacuum. In a void, no one could say why a thing, once set in motion, should stop anywhere. For why should it stop here rather than here? So that a thing will either be at rest or must be moved ad infinitum unless something more powerful gets in the way. Further, things are now thought to move into the void because it yields. But in a void, this quality is present equally everywhere, so that things should move in all directions. Further, the truth of what we assert is plain from the following considerations. We see the same weight or body moving faster than another for two reasons. Either because there is a difference in what it moves through, as between water, air, and earth, or because, other things being equal, the moving body differs from the other owing to excess of weight or of lightness. Sounds like density versus buoyancy type thing. Now, the medium causes a difference because it impedes the moving thing. Most of all, it is moving in the opposite direction, but in a secondary degree, even if it is at rest, and especially a medium that is not easily divided, i.e. a medium that is somewhat dense. A, then, will move through B in time G and through D, which is thinner in time E. Okay, come on, bro, just get to the freaking point. Who first conceived of space? That's what I'm trying to get to here. All right. So here's Aristotle arguing against space. The man who proved the globe, Aristotle, arguing against space. Arguing against a vacuum. Now, there is no ratio in which the void is exceeded by body, as there is no ratio. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. It is plain then that if there is a time in which it will move through the part of the void. So he's kind of arguing against a vacuum. But what kind of vacuum is he talking about? Is he talking about, and seriously, is he talking about some little vacuum somebody made here on Earth, or is he actually talking about the idea of a vacuum of space? And that's what I haven't gotten specific clarity on yet. The theory was supported and restated by Galileo Galilei in the early 17th century as resistenza del vacuo. So apparently Galileo is also in the whole nature abhors a vacuum camp. Galileo was surprised by the fact that water could not rise above a certain level in an aspiration tube in a suction pump, leading him to conclude that there is a limit to the phenomena. René Descartes proposed a Pleiadic interpretation of atomism to eliminate the void, which he considered. So it looks like they keep talking about the void, and I'm starting to think that the void might have been the old style way of talking about or referring to space, the vacuum of space. Old Dirty Ninja says, I'm happy to see you're finally starting to educate yourself, although I know that you will more than likely ignore the facts and substitute your reality with a divergent existence. No. No. So interesting. So I think the void might be the old era term for the vacuum of space. Could be wrong here, but René Descartes proposed a planning to eliminate the void, which he considered incompatible with his concept of space. Okay, so let's go ahead and type in the void. Aristotle, the void meaning. What is in the void? Voiding the void, the brief history of nothingness. NPR. That's mainstream, right? That's a mainstream source, right? Red Pill Philosophy. Do you believe that a turtle carries the earth? Do you believe in not using misrepresentations and red herrings? Yep. Very interesting. Very interesting. Continuity in the void. Several early Greek philosophers were talking about 2,000 years ago, including Democritus. Imagine the universe as consisting of a multitude of irreducible particles moving in an empty void. On the other hand, Aristotle, 350 BC, 2,000 plus years ago, denied the existence of a void, parentheses, a region of space containing no substance, believing instead that the universe is filled continuously with substance. In Book 4 of Physica, we find Aristotle's arguments against the existence of a void. He first addresses the claim that the compressibility of substances, such as air trapped inside a jar, implies the existence of empty space between the particles of air. Certainly, if air consists of irreducible particles, and if air is compressible, then there must be space between the particles. However, Aristotle rejects atomism and considers all substance to be continuous. Okay, violent motions, there's the motion of projectiles. He points out Just like I've got Newton's third law of motion here. Every body continues in its state of rest or of uniform motion in a right line unless it is compelled to change that state by forces impressed. Wait, that's not. Is that? No, that's not every. That's not every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Is Newton's third law, I believe. That's how you supposedly explain how vacuum. Oh God! Oh. Oh. Oh Jesus! Oh God! It's so ridiculous. Oh, so apparently the explanation for how a rocket ship works in the vacuum of space is Newton's third law of motion. It's fucking ridiculous. So utterly fucking ridiculous. The mind of God says it works on a Coke can. Propulsion is legit. What are you talking about? Are you talking about when they put like a can of Sprite in a vacuum chamber? Vacuum chamber. I saw that video. If that's what you're talking about, then I think there's a lot of holes in that YouTube video. Experiment. Which I'm not really going to get into now, unless the mind of God provokes me into doing it. So maybe, mind of God, if you confirm that you're talking about that Sprite can in a... Oh, you are. Wait, are you saying that the Sprite can in the vacuum chamber proves that rockets can work in the vacuum of space? Is that what you're saying? I just want to be clear. Because I have a lot of issues with that video. Oh, okay. So you, well, see, I have a few issues. Number one, first of all, that video with the Sprite can. First of all, his camera was a little off center. His slow motion camera was a little off center, so it's kind of annoying because the very side of the can where the Sprite gets ejected from, you don't have as clear a view of whether or not the Sprite is hitting the side of the container before the can moves. His camera was a little off-centered, so I'm not saying it invalidates his observation, but it's a bit kind of annoying because that's the side you really got to see, and it's a bit off-center, so you could see more of one side than the other side. It's a little bit annoying. But second of all, in a vacuum, your can of Sprite is not attached to a string, attached to a chamber wall that's sitting on a platform that's sitting on the ground of the room you're performing the experiment in. And I think this is kind of an unavoidable issue with people who are trying to prove that rockets can work in the vacuum of space down here on Earth. How the hell? And there's another popular video. Let me pull that up real quick. Where is it? Yes. It's another popular video. And it's by Action Team Lab, I think. Let me see. Vacuum in space. Team Action Lab or some shit. Or, sorry, Rockets in Space. Rockets in Space. Vacuum. I know it's not an experiment, but that's all. Here it is. Right. I had to smash the dislike on this one. And these guys try to pull it off. And this is their setup here. And I was impressed with this one. I have to say, they really tried. They spent it's a 15-minute long video full of edits and stuff. It looks like they spent days trying to do this. They have their big ass vacuum chamber. They had so much trouble. They had to do like 5 different versions because they couldn't ignite the rocket in a vacuum. They couldn't do it. And eventually ended up plastering a bunch of glue around the rocket. And I think what they ended up doing is they created a concealed, pressurized environment within the rocket just to get the thing to ignite. They finally got the thing to ignite. But look at it. The rocket is this little black thing right here, but the rocket is attached to this silver thing right here. And the silver thing right here is held suspended in air here by these rods here. And these rods are kind of forced into place by pressing against the walls of their giant fucking vacuum chamber. So you might get some propulsion, not even propulsion really. You might get something to ignite in a vacuum. But they're trying to argue, this is what they were trying to argue, is that they put this meter here and it's got a platform. And I think it basically it's just a scale. It weighs things. So if you put something on a scale, it's going to press down. Well, they put the rocket facing the platform of the scale so that when it ignites, as I'll show you guys here, when it ignites, I'll show you guys right here, the rocket basically pushes into the scale, and they wanted to register if the rocket was actually exerting force. Great shot right here. So here's the rocket. This is the exhaust. This is where all the stuff's going to fly out, and it's supposed to propel the rocket in this direction, and it's going to push into this scale, and it's going to register here, and they're going to be like, you see, the rocket does work. It was pushing forward into the scale. Let's watch. Mind you, this is after like 6 attempts. They tried and they tried and they tried, and they couldn't even get it to ignite in the vacuum chamber. Finally, on their final attempt, they managed to get the thing to push. It pushes just a little bit. Here's a great one. Here's a great shot here. Look, slow motion. It ignites. There goes all the thrust out the back. And you can see that the thing is already moving. And it's pushing in to the scale. Speed this shit up a little bit. I mean, let alone the fact that the moment you ignite the rocket and all this stuff is getting shot into the vacuum, it's no longer a vacuum anymore, because look, it's all, I mean, I don't think a vacuum's supposed to be full of a bunch of smoke, right? Bam, they get this going, and it's pushing into the scale. And so they're basically saying, look, we finally got a rocket to work in space. First of all, in space, your rocket isn't attached to the walls of a vacuum chamber, which gives it rigidity so that it can even be pushing into your scale to begin with. In space, you don't have any grounding. So it seems like an inherent problem. It seems like an inherent problem with people trying to prove that rockets can work in space on Earth, The inherent problem is if you have a vacuum chamber, like all these experiments do the same shit. Experiments. All these experiments do the exact same shit. Okay? With the can of Sprite, let's pull that one up real quick. Pull up the can of Sprite. With the can of Sprite, just let that play for a few seconds. There you go. With the can of Sprite, here it is, perfect. The can of Sprite is attached to a string that's attached to the walls and the ceiling of the vacuum chamber, and the vacuum chamber is sitting on the floor of your nice stable earth. This is in no way anything like what would happen in space. The theoretical place called space. These things are doomed and destined to fail as long as they have something holding the object in place. Okay, you can put it on the floor. There is no floor in space. So you still have a bit of a problem. So I am not convinced by any of these. If we go back to the other video and you try to argue that this is proof rockets work in a vacuum, because look, it pressed into the scale, I think that's utterly ridiculous. Would it press into the scale if it wasn't secured in place to the walls of the vacuum chamber? Do you really think it would have that? Let's get some fucking brightness up in here. I don't think it would happen. I really don't think it would happen. If anything, it might just fly around hysterically, but it's not going to have anything. The only reason it's pressing into this the way it is because it's secured into place. So, I mean, you can't just ignore these variables, man. The Mind of God $5 super chat, classes in session, peace, red pill philosophy. Much appreciated, Mind of God. Thanks a lot. Let me just double check I didn't miss any other super chats. Okay, great. I want to say thank you to everybody who made it in through the YouTube shadow banning algorithm. Really thankful. Looks like we have a fake troll account, so we're gonna have to ban that one. Not if you're gonna use my name. You can troll all you want. Just use my name and my avatar. So let's Yes, thank you, Nathan. Let's see here. Let's just not report, but not put user in timeout, not remove. I'll just go back to it later. We gotta ban that motherfucker. Actually, no. That's impersonating. I'm pretty sure that's against YouTube's policies. Anyway, so continuity and the void. Where was I? Okay, here we are. So there's so many problems with the alleged vacuum of space that it doesn't even begin to make any sense. 193, pretty decent. Probably should be a lot more than that, but whatever. They literally just, you guys probably heard that Owen Benjamin got his channel demonetized. Well, he just released a new video. Go look it up. It's called YouTube is Psychotic. And in the video, he says that not only did YouTube demonetize his channel, but they also took away his super chats from the last 2 months. So it's not like, okay, you're demonetized going forward. No, that's not what they did. You're demonetized going forward, and every single super chat from the last 2 months, including his members, the $5 a month membership thing he has, they ended up refunding it. So he lost 2 months worth of super chats and his memberships. So that is fucking crazy, bro. That is completely nuts, man. I mean, that's crazy shit. I mean, can you imagine that? Yes. Somebody says retroactively censor him. Yeah. It's literally retroactive demonetization. Insane. So YouTube is like crazy, dude. So I'm just thankful that 193 people made it in. Like, what? Cool, man. At least 100, like a couple hundred people made it in. That's great. Nathan Oakley, one pound, 99, 199. I mean, no, I don't even know how to say it in the fucking British currency. Thank you, Nathan Oakley. Space is a second law of thermodynamics of violation. Thank you. Ancient Skeptic says, if Earth is not in spheroid shape, why don't you take a vehicle and go beyond the Earth's edges and put on YouTube? Why babble like an idiot? Well, if you want me to find the edge of the flat Earth, then I ask you to petition all the world's governments to stop making it so difficult to explore Antarctica. You know, the Antarctic Treaty that every major nation on the face of the Earth signed up to for the last like 60 years, even though there's been international quarreling, international squabbles, wars, currency manipulations, diplomatic tensions, all this shit, they still managed to come together on the Antarctic Treaty conveniently. So that's really the answer to that. It's very simple. Anyways, so let's just get back. I'm really getting off track now. So the content, very interesting. Continuity and the void. Yeah. Well, I guess. I'll just let this person impersonate me for now. If someone wants to impersonate me, I'll just let him impersonate me for now. But it says, I love Donald Trump and want his D. Well, I like Donald Trump a lot, but maybe not that much. Yes, thank you, Nathan. Yes, thank you. Yes. We'll let the impersonation account have its fun for now. Red Pill Ancient Skeptic says, why only Antarctica? Earth has 4 sides. If it is flat, why only Antarctica, buddy? Wait, 4 sides? That assumes it's some type of a square shape. And maybe the Earth is actually a circle shape, like the azimuthal equidistant projection map. So, yeah, kind of an issue. And again, so, ice wall. Ever heard of the ice wall? So, interesting. There's that. Kind of interesting, but whatever. So I'm still not entirely convinced though on this whole the void, this whole space thing. What is space, and who actually came up with it? So let's go here. Avoiding the void: a brief history of nothingness. Cynical Skeptic with a $5 super chat. Skepticism is where it's at. Thank you very much, Cynical Skeptic. Really appreciate it. A Brief History of Nothingness. This is from NPR, November 17th, 2010. Interesting. I think we might get our answer in this article. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think we might have found what we're looking for. Already in ancient Greece. Everything goes back to ancient Greece, it seems. The Greeks. Flatsoid FE, hey, I finally got you live. Great, man. Great. Already in ancient Greece, the question incited passionate debate. Parmenides, a pre-Socratic philosopher from southern Italy, would say that eon permeates all that exists, representing immutable being, in its most abstract form. Sounds like the ether. Sounds like in quantum mechanics, when there's this some theorize there's this all-pervasive web at the foundation of reality, and that's what allows quantum entanglement to occur. You affect a particle on one side of the universe and you flip it on the complete other side of the universe, and they have an instantaneous reaction, quantum entanglement. I've heard some theorize that that's pretty much possible because it's all interconnected at a fundamental level. My view is that it's interconnected by the consciousness of the programmer of this simulation. And I know I don't necessarily believe in the simulation theory, but I know if I said that web is dare I say it, the mind of God, then people are going to be, you're just, the atheist. They're going to be like, you're just a religious idiot, and you're just religious. And it's like, no, I've never even considered myself religious. I'm just like, just like a skeptic and like science and stuff. So, anyways, according to his view, the void would be an impossibility since it would mean a place without eon, and hence with non-being. Very fascinating. Very, very, very fascinating. Against Parmenides and his disciples, atomists such as Democritus and later Lucretius would say that everything is composed of atoms moving in the void. So matter and no matter coexist, and where atoms are missing, there is emptiness. Wow. Ancient skeptic says, if you are not religious, then how did you come? Well, actually, you wrote how did you? Okay, so you just gotta learn to spell. Then how did you come to the conclusion that Earth is flat? Well, I am not a flat earther. I'm a globe skeptic, and you may not be a fan of skepticism, and it doesn't make sense because your title is ancient skeptic, so you'd think you would like skepticism, but I'm just a globe skeptic. I don't call myself a flat earther. All right, Nathan Oakley says, I run a freaking debate show with a public link. If Reds wants to debate me, he can. Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, why not? Nathan Oakley is available 7 days a week. Public link. Anybody can join. Nathan Oakley is no more aggressive and mean than people like Fight the Flat Earth, for example. So they got to stop using these sad excuses. They got to stop using these sad excuses to avoid debating he who shall not be named, Nathan Oakley. So yeah, I'm not a flat earther. I'm just a globe skeptic. So just keep that in mind. You guys are just like stupid as hell or something. So Aristotle strongly disagreed with the atomists. To him, nature abhorred a vacuum. The void was impossible. Guys, I think it's becoming increasingly clear here that these guys aren't just talking about a little vacuum on Earth. They're talking about the vacuum of space. They're talking about space. So if this is what it is, and I'm not 100% there, but I'm getting closer every new article I read. This means that space is just another ancient presupposition. That space has been a concept in the minds of man long before we had fucking any proof. Any proof. So, Ancient Skeptic says, if you are skeptic, why do you empower flat earthers? What are you talking about? 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 Empowering flat earthers? I don't empower flat earthers. I'm a globe skeptic. And if it turns out that the globe has practically zero evidence to back it up, then that's a bit of an issue. That's a bit of a crisis. So, globe skepticism reveals the holes in the globe model. That's what just being a skeptic, that's what happens, dude. Literally, Like you just become a skeptic, and then like you start realizing that there's kind of like some issues that need to be resolved with the globe model, like serious issues, you know, like actual like serious like issues. Um, so it's not that I'm empowering flat earthers, it's that I'm a globe skeptic. And while I ask questions and apply skepticism, you start to find out that there's a lot of problems with this spinning space ball thing. So really it's all about just being intellectually honest and skeptical. Ancient Skeptic says, if Earth is flat, why can't I see Tokyo from California? Do you genuinely have this much of an illiterate understanding of basic reality? I mean, do I really have to go back to Globe Skepticism 101 with you, bro? Jesus. 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 Do I really have to go back to Skepticism 101 here? My goodness. I've even done videos on this. And atmosphere and atmospheric conditions alone. And it's funny, I just realized I don't even like the word atmosphere, because I just noticed that the word sphere is in it. I was watching a YouTube video the other day and someone pointed that out. I'm like, holy shit, yeah, atmosphere has the word atmosphere in it. Just more presupposition bullshit. Anyways, so literally atmospheric conditions alone vary so much from one day to the next, just within a 20-mile radius around you, that you would need clarity, perfect, pristine, clear conditions all across the frickin' planet in order to see that far, and you're not going to see that far, bro. I mean, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. You have to be a fake skeptic idiot and sad. Sorry, let me get back to the bottom here. There we go. Yes, someone says you should change your name to Ancient Conformist. Exactly. She's like, Ancient Conformist. Aristotle strongly disagreed with the atomists. To him, nature abhorred a vacuum. The void was impossible. His logic went something like this. Drop a marble on a glass containing water and into one containing honey. The marble's falling speed is larger in the glass with water. Since the speed of an object moving in a material medium, air, water, honey, etc., is inversely proportional to the medium's density, Aristotle extrapolated that in a medium which is completely empty, zero density, the speed of an object would be infinite. That to Aristotle was absurd, and hence no medium could be completely empty. He thus postulated the existence of the ether, an inert and eternal substance that filled all of space above the earth. So this basically confirms what I was trying to get to the bottom of. And the big question that I started today's stream and live high IQ research on with, the big question was, is the vacuum of space a presupposition? Did people send rockets and probes up into space during the 20th century and then were like, holy shit, look, space exists? Or was space, just like the spinning globe, another ancient presupposition that Stone Age Flintstone people were postulating before they even went up to prove that it exists? I don't know how the fuck my subscriber count keeps going up, but my live viewers don't seem to go up. I don't get it. I don't get it. But hey, the shocking censorship. Owen Benjamin getting shut down, retroactive demonetization. Like, it's getting crazy out there. So, I like to believe that I have around 3 times as many live viewers than it's listed here. But who the hell knows? I don't know. For some reason, my channel just keeps getting a bunch of new subs, and like, there's like no increase in the number of live viewers I get. I don't know. Yeah. So like, yes, yeah. I think my channel is basically just, it's got so many layers of algorithmic shadow banning stacked on top of it that there's just, it's screwed. There's nothing. I can get 1 million new subs in the next year and it's not going to change anything. This channel is fucked. There's been videos deleted, just countless things have been taken down, countless community guideline strikes over the years. You know how many little freaking notes they have plastered on a wall next to my channel? It's just, honestly, I should probably start from scratch. I should probably start this channel, start all over from scratch. I really should, because it's like, I feel like there's new subscribers coming in, but nobody is seeing my videos. Nobody's clicking on them. I don't know if they're just hiding the number count. So maybe there is 1,000 people watching, but they're just not letting that go through. I don't know what it is. It almost seems like a pointless uphill battle to have this channel, which is obviously being shadow banned. It just seems like a waste of time. I should have started a new channel months ago, and I'd probably have 10 times more live viewers here. So, but that's fine. Just racist white liberals who work in like Silicon Valley, they just want to crush like any voice that they disagree with. Is kind of basically like how it is. Just stamp anybody's, just like white. Just imagine being like a white liberal, and like you just live in like just these white neighborhoods, and you're just so privileged, and you just want to like crush every voice. Like, I dare I speculate what these white liberals in Silicon Valley would have been doing if they were around during the civil rights movement. Dare I say they would have been sicking dogs on black folk. They would have been telling Rosa Parks, shut up and sit at the back of the bus. They would have been censoring Martin Luther King. I don't even want to speculate on what these racist white liberals would have been doing. So I think we've gotten to the point here where I'm very convinced that when Aristotle said nature abhors a vacuum, he was talking about space. We got this stupid troll account that's just saying racist stuff. Impersonator, gonna have to, yeah. Well, put him on timeout for now. We'll put the little trolley on timeout for now. Impersonator account. Exactly. Yes. That's actually exactly right. Cosmic Surfer. That's exactly right. Anyways, so it looks like that is actually what Aristotle was talking about. He was talking about the vacuum of space. So again, people were postulating at Stone Age people. Okay? The Flintstones. If the Flintstones were speculating what's happening up in the stars, would you take their word for it? Would you take their freaking word for it? I would be very skeptical. In the early 17th century, Descartes suggested that the cosmos was filled with an ether-like substance that was able to sustain vortices similar to hurricanes. He used this notion to explain the orbits of planets around the sun and of the moon. In his masterpiece, The Principia, Newton proved Descartes wrong, arguing that if there was such a substance in space, it would cause so much friction that the planets would fall to the sun. Wow, these ancient stone people, dude. These ancient stone people. Very interesting. When James Clerk Maxwell showed in his mid 1800s, that light was an electromagnetic wave propagating at 300,000 kilometers per second, he also concluded that, as any good wave should, light should be waving on something material. But what? So this is again. So this we're getting back to the ether again, and that Michelson allegedly failed to detect the ether, to see the ether in their famous 1880s. Quite a sense of desperation spread through the physics community. Strange ideas were proposed, like the Lorentz contraction. Strange ideas were proposed to salvage the ether. Only in 1905 did Einstein prove that the ether was not needed to sustain the propagation. Side by side with the sentiments, Adams were also saying, sure, buddy. I mean, wow. What a cringe-worthy spot to be in as a heliocentrist. Talk about a cringe-worthy spot to be in. Where the man who proved that we live on a spinning space ball, Aristotle, is the man attributed as saying nature abhors a vacuum and being completely opposed to the idea that we live in a space vacuum. What a tough spot to be in. McBrazzle says, love it, keep up all your good work and all the topics you cover. Been a subscriber before you ever tackled the globe. Oh, great. Really appreciate that. It's got to be a tough spot to be in. Nature abhors a vacuum. Aristotle, 2,000 years ago. He's the same guy that they say proved we live in a spinning space ball 2,000 years ago. So that's really something. So very, very interesting. Just making it more interesting. 9 astronomers discovered that the whole space is filled with a mysterious entity called dark energy, and then they start getting dark energy and all this mental stuff. So very, very, very fascinating. So it seems quite clear that when Aristotle said nature abhors a vacuum, he was talking about the vacuum of space. He wasn't just talking about some little vacuum someone makes on Earth in their shed. He's talking about the vacuum of space. So, very interesting. So this is really what I wanted to determine. This is what I wanted to discover today in my high IQ research session, which I'm glad you guys could all be a part of. I wanted to know if space is an ancient presupposition, just like the spinning space ball, just like the spinning globe, and it is. It's an ancient presupposition. The globe goes back to Pythagoras 2,500 years ago. He said we live on a globe, on a sphere, and then according to mainstream heliocentric history, about 100, 200 years later, Aristotle confirmed Pythagoras' presuppositional pulled out of his ass idea that we live on a sphere. Aristotle allegedly proved it, but apparently Aristotle is the guy who said space is ridiculous. Aristotle said space is ridiculous. That's basically what he said. He said nature abhors a vacuum. Very interesting. Very, very, very fascinating. So, see, outer space. You get your Wikipedia page for like outer space, and outer space is just space, and the expanse that exists beyond the Earth. How long have I been going for? An hour and 10 minutes. Wow. Oh, live viewer count plummeting. That's a real damn shame. That's a real damn shame. Anyways, actually, I heard that Owen Benjamin, ever since he was demonetized by the white liberal, privileged, ultra wealthy tyrants of YouTube, Owen Benjamin is actually considering starting a new alternative platform. I heard it's called unauthorized.tv. That's what I heard it's called. And Um, interesting. Interesting. We'll see. There's so many alternatives out there, but they all fail. They all fail. You got like Real.video, which is just terrible, unfortunately. BitChute is okay, but they need live streaming and they need a mobile app, and I haven't seen that yet. So it's like, okay, we had that Ben Swan guy who was considering doing. He has one in the works. It's called Isagoria, but I haven't heard shit about it for like 2 months. So it's just like, what the fuck is going on, man? So yeah. So we'll see because they're censoring. The privileged upper class white liberal Democrats are crushing every minority opinion and minority voice. It's shocking. I've never seen anything so shocking. Just shocking bigotry and intolerance and prejudice. Vacuum. So it's all very interesting. Very interesting. Here's Physics by Aristotle. Let's go table of contents. I'm going to read Aristotle's entire book called Physics. I'm going to read the whole thing. I think it's pretty lengthy, but you got to go back to the source if you want to understand what they're telling you, because this is all ancient presupposition shit. Book 1. There is some reference to vacuums and voids in this, which I believe is what I already talked about here, which was quoted by over here in the Wikipedia article. So wow, fascinating. So there it is. I think it's pretty conclusive now. Space is an ancient presupposition. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. So I mean, there you go. There you go. I mean, how the fuck are you gonna get me? How the fuck are you gonna get me to believe in space when it's something you believed in before you had proof of it? What? You're fucking crazy. And to me, that makes all the so-called proof for space and the proof for the spinning ball, it makes it all highly suspect. And it puts the burden of proof on the heliocentrist. The burden of proof is on the heliocentrist. When everything you tell me you have proof for is actually an ancient Stone Age Flintstones presupposition with no real evidence for it. The burden of proof is on you. Period. Later, Flatsoid. Thanks for tuning in, man. Appreciate it. So, wow, that's very fascinating. Okay. Well, I think that's basically it for today, guys. I want to say thank you for everybody who made it through the censorship algorithm. I want to say thank you to all my new subscribers. Subscriber count keeps going up. Views aren't going up. Live views aren't going up. But for some reason, subscribers are going up. So that's what they call shadow banning. I'm doing it to Owen Benjamin. Well, I mean, they basically censored Owen Benjamin. When you take away monetization, you are trying to censor somebody by demotivating their work. But anyways, okay, so thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. That's about it. Thank you for everybody who smashed the super chat. Let me just double check I didn't miss any. Good. Did not. Thank you for everybody who smashed it. Mind of God, Nathan Oakley, Cynical Skeptic, and McBrazel. Really appreciate it. There's really not much else to say here. Just keep being a skeptic. Like, wake up in the morning and, and look in the mirror and just be like, you know what, today I want to support skepticism. Like, that's what you got to do. Like, and I think that when you become a fan of skepticism, amazing things happen when you become a skeptic. So, okay, guys, thank you for tuning in. I'll talk to y'all later. Live High IQ research officially done.